Hi, I'm Deacon Jeff, and this is the reflection for Monday, May 16th. I think most of us Catholics recognize that every time we go to Mass, we hear some readings from the Bible. But I'm not sure most of us realize where those readings come from, how they're chosen, what's the rhyme or reason for what readings we're hearing at any particular time. And in fact, there really is a rhyme or reason. You see, the Church has selected readings for Sundays based on a 3-year cycle. And for weekdays, based on a 2-year cycle. So for Sundays, there's years A, B, and C. So for every first Sunday of Lent during cycle A, every 3 years, you'll hear the same 3 readings or 4 readings. Same thing for the weekdays. During year 1, on the third Tuesday of Easter, you'll hear the same readings during year 1 every other year, and then you'll hear different readings during year 2. At Mass on Sundays, we typically have 4 readings from the Bible. A first reading, which is most often from the Old Testament. A second reading, which is typically from one of the letters in the New Testament, one of the epistles, if you will, Paul's epistles, Peter's, John's, etc. A psalm, and then, of course, a gospel reading. The cycle for Sundays provides that cycle A will generally have the Gospel of Matthew from beginning to end. Cycle B, every Sunday, we'll hear from the Gospel of Mark. Now, Mark is kind of short compared to the other 3 Gospels, so we supplement Mark in cycle year B with readings from the 6th chapter of St. John's Gospel. And then in cycle C, which is where we are right now, we typically hear from the Gospel of Luke. And then at Easter, we kind of pull out of the cycle and always hear from the Gospel of John. Weekdays, same thing applies, except that we just run through the Gospels, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and then John during Easter, beginning to end. And the first readings during weekday Masses can come from either the Old or the New Testament, and of course, a psalm. It's kind of interesting to me that sometimes we Catholics are accused of not hearing the Bible, learning the Bible, knowing the Bible, when every time we go to Mass, we get 3 or 4 readings from the Bible. And throughout the course of the cycle, if you attend Mass regularly, you will hear 90% of the Gospels, 72% of the whole New Testament, and about 15% of the Old Testament, not including the Psalms. And because we get a psalm every week at Sunday Mass, it's a 3-year cycle, 150 years, 150 psalms, we get almost all the psalms throughout that time. Now, the interesting thing to me about this, though, is that cycle 1 and 2 for weekday and cycle A, B, and C for Sundays aren't meant to run together in any kind of particular way. But periodically, just by chance, we start to hear some of the same readings during the weekday Mass readings that we hear during the Sunday Mass readings of the same week. And that's been happening the last week or so with our first readings at Mass on weekdays and our New Testament readings at Mass on Sundays. We've been hearing a lot from the Acts of the Apostles. Now, I got to tell you, Acts of the Apostles is one of my favorite books of the Bible. If you're not familiar with the book, it's 28 chapters. And roughly the first half of the book, the first 12 chapters, a little less than half, is about what happened to those early Christian communities shortly after Jesus' ascension into heaven in Jerusalem. Communities where Peter was, where James was. They kind of follow St. Peter for the most part. And the second part of the book, a little more than half of the last part of the book, really follows St. Paul for the most part. We hear about his conversion, and then we hear about his missionary trips, his 3 missionary trips up into Europe, then his 4th trip, which some people call a missionary trip, but I don't really think it is because he didn't go voluntarily. he was a prisoner going to be tried in Rome for his fourth missionary trip, and that's how he ended up in Rome. And what really hits home for me when I read readings from the Acts of the Apostles is what these guys went through. They were arrested. They were jailed. They spent months, sometimes years, in jail. They were beaten. They were stoned. And we hear that even St. James was executed. He was beheaded by Herod. And according to pious tradition in the church, 11 of the 12 apostles were all executed in various different horrible ways. So the reason that the Acts of the Apostles really appeals to me is because I find that when I'm in one of those kind of moods of, gee, God, really, kind of maybe having some downtime in my faith, not feeling very good about it, look at what these guys went through. And I think, my goodness, if they were willing to go through all of this to share God's word, what right do I have to be down because things might not be going so great for me? They all, with the exception of St. John, died for the faith. And there's really only one of three reasons why someone would do that. Number one, they all believe the same lie. Number two, they were all mentally ill and had the same delusion. Or number three, what they died for was really true. Now, given that they, after Christ's ascension, went in 12 different directions and 12 different missionary trips to evangelize people in 12 different parts of the world, and they all were spreading the same message, it seems unlikely, minusculely likely, that they were believing the same lie. For the same reason, it seems also extremely unlikely that they were all suffering the same delusion. Which leads me to one conclusion. I think only one logical conclusion, Your Honor, as I might have said in my prior life. That is, what they died for, what they were preaching, what they were trying to bring people to was no less and no more than the truth. So if you're at Mass this Sunday or one day this week, listen for that reading from the Acts of the Apostles. Think about that. What these guys went through. The almost inescapable conclusion was based on the truth. May you all have a blessed day.